Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about a certain anime movie by the name of Ghost in the Shell. Now, I've never, I've seen this movie a couple of times. Cheryl, I think this was your first time seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be really interested in what your opinion is. Like, what did you take from the story? It's a very dense movie, and even rewatching it, I constantly pick up on new things. But one of the biggest things about the movie is the theme that carries it. Like the entire story is built around a central theme, which is how movies normally happen. But it's so integral to the entirety of the anime movie because of the fact that if you really think about the overall plot, it's very simple, but the movie itself is complicated. But why don't we just go ahead and jump right into it? And spoiler alert, we are going to be talking a lot about this movie and the different details within it, and possible spoiler alert for the 2017 Ghost in the Shell, because there might be a chance that we accidentally mention something about that. So if you haven't seen those movies, go watch them, then come back and check out our segment. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. What are your thoughts, Cheryl?
Well, I watched it through one time and then I was really confused. I just was like, it was really hard to follow my first time watching it, so I felt like I had to go back and watch it again. But I stopped about halfway because I was like, okay, I get it now. I get what I just watched. Um, but my initial reaction was that they probably were inspired by like Blade Runner esque stuff. And then after making this, it probably inspired the creation of the Matrix. Because,
It's funny that you say probably, because the fact is it's 100% true. The Wachowskis went to Joel Silver and basically showed him Ghost in the Shell and said, "We want to make this in live action." They basically said, "We want to make this movie," and that was their basis for the entirety of the Matrix. They were absolutely inspired by Ghost in the Shell. So it's funny that you picked up on that.
nice. Yeah, I mean, there were green numbers running across the screen for a lot of the time. But also like the whole thing with the back of the neck. So I was like, oh, Matrix totally stole stuff from here. Um,
Yep.
but just also a lot of the concept is similar too. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I was like, well, I feel like I could see the line of inspiration from movie to
Favorites.
movie. Um, and like all three of those movies are, pretty good.
Yeah.
Blade Runner, I mean, obviously Blade Runner, Matrix, good movies. I still don't know how I feel about Ghost in the Shell because it was really slow. There's a lot of more concept discussion conversation than action, but the action scenes were pretty awesome. They looked really good, like for 1995 anime. It was really
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Actually, I really appreciated how good it looked for 1995, and even like compared to animes they do now, I feel like they
Yeah.
don't craft the effects as well or like put that much detail into the drawings as they did in this movie. So I
I think
appreciated that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with that, because one of the things that I took away with watching this movie over again was that, like, how beautiful it is and how it actually feels like art. When you're looking at the movie, it almost feels like you're watching a painting or watching some type of artistic composition just coming together. Like, you could take certain screenshots and just freeze frame them and look at the details within every single frame, and it's like, yeah, this is not just entertainment. This is absolutely an artistic piece of work, of fiction. The way they built their worlds, the way that the characters move through those worlds and interact with them, the music that accompanies it, everything makes this very artistic piece. And what you're talking about, Ghost in the Shell, is something that carries throughout all forms or most forms of how this world has been adapted. is that Ghost in the Shell is very dry. It is absolutely dry, and I knew that going in. And special note, when I first saw the movie as a kid, I didn't really enjoy it. But when I got to see it again as an adult, I had more appreciation of the theme that they were trying to tackle, and even the overall like plot that's happening. And that's probably the biggest difference between this movie and the 2017 movie. Ghost in the Shell is an introspective film, and the 2017 movie is an action movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you can absolutely see the difference with how those two, um, how they tackle those different films.
Yeah, I feel like the concept or the whole theme of the animated movie was pretty like point blank just said it, like it's really clear because she basically explains it, and it has a lot
Right.
to do with like identity and like just freedom and not having the freedom because you like she feels suppressed. So I think it just the themes of it are mostly about freedom and identity, which
Yeah.
is very relatable even today. So I mean that's just something that is very easy to carry over to like years and years beyond the movie. um
Right.
i I liked the I think for it's obviously a sci-fi film,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very 80s, which I guess makes sense because the manga was probably written around then since the movie was made in 1995. So
Right.
for a sci-fi film, I think it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Sci-fi, that type of sci-fi is not exactly my type of
Mm-hmm.
preferred movie, I guess, because like I even didn't. I mean, I like Blade Runner, but it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, let's watch Blade Runner because it's
Right.
slow and it's like really it's heavy on the theme. It's heavy
Yeah.
on concept. It's heavy
Yeah.
on technology, and this is very similar to that. And that's why I was reminded of Blade Runner because I'm like, this is just like Blade Runner.
Yeah, you can feel it. They definitely wear their inspirations on their sleeves, and the theme of identity is obviously the thing that carries the story through. But it's also about transhumanism and the question that comes with all these types of things. And this is another question that was in Blade Runner, and it works in tandem with the theme of identity. But what does it mean to be human? The whole idea that you have these people that have cybernetic parts in their bodies and they constantly swap them out or get maintenance on them. And the main character, all she has is a brain. She has a human brain, but a completely synthetic body. So for her, it's what makes me different than than that synthetic being over there. Well, then the question I think is that well, you have a human brain and you have human experiences and memories. But then the movie challenges that too, because you find out that there are characters that have their entire memory rewritten. And when your memory is rewritten and you don't know who you are, you lose the last bit of like connection to what it means to be human. I'm losing my voice. Oh my gosh.
It's so
Excuse me.
emotional.
But yeah, so like that's where it's the challenge comes in. If human beings are simply the culmination of all the experiences and memories that we've accumulated throughout the entirety of our lives, then what does it mean when all of a sudden you can't trust your memory? And if you are a person that has no human parts, the only part of yourself that you can look to be human are your memories and the fact that you feel and you feel like you know what it means to be human. But if even that can be manipulated, then you have nothing to separate you from a synthetic that has just really good programming.
Thanks for the like, Strakaman, and Thanks. I also love the purple, so.
Of course, of course you did. But so
um,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like it's really deep. I think this movie definitely takes you on a journey to just kind of think about life and humanity and like I guess kind of reflect on yourself and your situation. Because these characters are not necessarily making choices. I don't really like it's not character driven. Like things are happening to them and they're reacting to things that are happening to them. And a lot of that is kind of like how life is, where you just kind of have to deal with things that are happening around you and you don't have control of how society works and you have to learn how to navigate through it. And like there's some people that don't like have the best outcome and you know kind of sucks and you just hope that that doesn't happen to you and you do everything you can to make things work, right?
right.
Yeah.
No,
um
absolutely.
One thing that I really like about the main character is just how like she's very powerful.
Hmm.
She like not just because she knows how to fight, but she's not like a damsel. She just carries on her own. She doesn't need anyone to help her with anything. And but she's not like a rock star either cuz everyone on her team is pretty good too. They just
Yep.
know how to work together and like just the teamwork itself is awesome, like the whole team.
Hmm.
So I thought that was cool just being able to see every character having the strength to stand on their own in comparison with her. Like everyone is just like almost flawless, which kind of, you know, we talked about other movies before and we're like this character has no flaws and I kind of felt like that too, but but I didn't feel like she didn't have anything to overcome even though, you know, she's not perfect, but she doesn't really like I guess she does grow. She still has like an arc, but she also doesn't really have flaws.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think that her flaws aren't laid bare like other characters. Like, for instance, um, like, and I guess there's a difference between having flaws um and taking damage, or like, you know, not being perfect in like your execution of things. Like, because by the end of the movie, when she fights the spider tank, and there's another difference between this version and the live action version, she actually doesn't beat the spider tank in the animated version. She like tries to, and she rips up her own body, and it's Bato that actually defeats it. So even by the end of the movie, even though she's been established as this, you know, strong character, she actually loses. Um, and she's nothing. And all she can do is lie there on the ground and can't even move her body while she waits for Bato to help her out. And she has to have him be the one that hooks her into the guy that was the program that was taken, Project 2501, so that she can dive into and connect with that character. But even up until that point, like, that is driven by her actions. She's the one that's making the choice to go after him because she knows that Chief Aramaki, her superior in Section 9, is only going to want to barter with this kidnapped program. So, but because of her struggling with her own identity of who she is she human, is she not? That's what's driving her decision to want to go after the program in the first place. And the connection is the fact that they are similar even though they're different, because this Project 2501 is a program that has become self-aware. But even though it's self-aware, it's still considered a program, even but it has synthetic bodies and it can go wherever it wants to. So Motoko looks at that and like, what is the difference between this synthetic program that has awareness and me who has an entire synthetic body and believes that I have awareness, all the memories that I have, but she mentions it herself. which is ironic. She says, I could have died and someone took my brain and put it into another body. That'll be important later when we talk about the live action version of this movie. But yeah, that's the thing, that's the through line that carries her through. So I absolutely agree with you that she does have an arc. And by the end of the movie, she actually says, I am no longer the woman that you knew as Major, and I am also not the program that you knew as Project 2501. I am something else entirely. So the message seems to be by the end, she was not able to really identify who she was for herself. So she created an entirely new identity and embraced that instead.
So, did they actually end up merging?
Yeah, they actually ended up merging, and that's why Bato was asking, "Hey, is he going to be with you forever? Are you still you?" Like he was asking those questions, and when then the ending is so strange in this movie because I got to the last couple of minutes and I realized I didn't remember how the movie ended. And I think it's really because the movie doesn't end on what we would normally say is a powerful note. It has a message and that message is clear, but it doesn't feel like an exclamation point. It almost feels like ellipses because she walks out of the building and she looks at the town and says, "All right, so where do I go next?" And then the credits roll.
Right. Well, there is another movie, another animated movie that they made in 2015. So
Right, yeah.
maybe we'll get closure there.
Right, yeah. Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence. And then there's a whole like series, Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. Um so yeah, like but looking at just this movie for itself, it is a high concept movie. It's one of those movies that is, I would say, more about concept than character, and it is heavy on exposition in the same way that The Matrix is heavy on exposition, but it is also heavy on its themes and how those themes affect the characters around them, but predominantly how the theme affects its main character and what that main character chooses to do in order to challenge that theme or to um, figure out the theme for themselves.
Right. I did kind of think of one thing at the end about how the puppet master wanted to merge with
Mm-hmm.
the major. But if he wanted to merge with her, then why was the spider tank shooting at her, trying to kill
Oh,
her?
well, the spider tank was because remember the puppet master got kidnapped by the government, and this is where like some of the story gets a little muddled, or it can get lost. But the government, Section 6, made that program. The program became self-aware, and the program, what it was able to do, it was able to hack cyberbrain, and that's why it's dangerous because in this world where everyone has a cyber brain, being able to just indiscriminately hack anybody is basically like being Superman. So but the program became self-aware, and then the program wanted to escape, so the program installed itself into this human body and was able to get itself out through a lot of different things that happen in the movie. But at the end, Section 6 is trying to steal the this program back because Section 9, which is the section that Motoko works for, is the one that they captured it after he got hit by a car. And that's why Togusa, who's the guy who uses the revolver, who is like strictly human, when he's in the car and he's doing his whole like detective thing, that's what he realizes. He's saying that two people walked into an elevator. The elevator stayed open longer than it should have, and the combined weight of these two people was over 1,000 pounds. That's not possible, and that's why like the other element of the movie, which is the optic camouflage, is also a repeating like thing that you see her use it and then it keeps coming back, and that was the point to say that, oh, there were people that were optically camo that also got into that elevator because there was only two people. These people don't look like they would drive themselves. There's two cars here, and there were over 1,000 pounds in that elevator with only two people. There were other people that got into the elevator that we couldn't see. Section 6 trying to do something, and so that's the thing. So Section 6 stole the program back, and the spider tank was belonged to Section 6 and was trying to keep Motoko from getting the program, getting the puppet master back.
Okay, that scene makes a whole lot more sense now. I was like, what is he? looking at, and I just didn't really understand what he was figuring out. But now I get it. It all makes sense
Yeah.
now.
No, yeah, exactly. And like that was something I don't think I even got when I first watched it, and maybe not even on the second viewing. But it's also interesting because like the Puppet Master's goal for merging comes from a a similar a similar idea. Like this is when we talk about when you have a protagonist and an antagonist, they want the same thing. So Motoko, what does she want? She wants to feel like she belongs. She wants to feel alive. That's why she goes and she swims at the bottom of, an ocean, even though she has a body that might not be able to float to the top because she's so heavy. She does it because she wants to feel something. She wants to feel like she's not alone. She wants to feel alive. And the puppet master, he wants the same thing. He wants to be, and technically he's genderless, but the puppet master wants to be alive. They like, I'm going to use he just for simplicity's sake. He wants to be able to know what it's like to live. He wants to know what it's like to die because to be alive is to eventually die. And since Motoko has a human brain, he would be able to experience that through her. And that's what she's saying at the end. She's like, well, you're getting most of the deal out of this. Like, you're gonna be able to live and die. Like, what am I getting out of this? Me as myself is going to be completely different. But the fact is that she also gets to kind of be elevated to this another plane of existence because she becomes a whole new being, and the identity that she was struggling with before she doesn't even have to address because now she has a new identity to embrace. So that's like I said, this movie has a lot in it and it's not always all interesting. But I really like the fact that it leans heavy into its themes and it makes it a very interesting watch.
It's definitely a head scratcher. One thing I did want to say was I knew that it wasn't gonna be like your typical anime because you told me that. So I was
Yeah.
expecting something bloody, which it was, something dark, which I guess yeah it was kind of
Kind of
dark.
dark.
Um, but I wasn't expecting nudity. And I was like, "Oh, okay, why does it have to have nudity?" Like I always ask myself when there's a movie and a scene and someone is naked and they show you the body parts, I'm like, "Why? What's the point besides trying to get men to watch it?"
Right.
Um for this one, I can't really figure out why, but it also didn't bother me. Because
Yeah.
I didn't feel like she was being sexualized. And that's
No.
why I was like, okay, I I don't this doesn't bother me.
Yeah, and it has two purposes in this movie because I asked myself the same thing. The one purpose was because of the fact that the optic camo was built into her actual body. When you saw the other guy, he had to have the hood, and he put the hood over his body, and that's the only way that he could have camo. But the camo is her body, so it makes sense that that's what can go invisible, but not the clothing on top. So she has to shed the clothing so that she can actually be invisible. So that was one reason. The other reason was because it was to show how she didn't really she wasn't really connected to these parts of humanity that we value, such as um, being concerned with things like being naked, and which is why when they're on the ship and she just starts taking her clothes off right in front of Bato, it's to kind of show her disconnection from what we understand as regular humanity. Because even Bato, he looks away. He doesn't try to stare at her or see. He completely just like shies away. So that's to show that Bato still has this part of his humanity where he is still concerned about seeing a naked woman because he knows that he shouldn't be looking. He doesn't just keep looking and keep talking. They make a point of showing that he does not want to look. But for her, she doesn't care, and the purpose is to show that that's how disconnected she is with her own humanity.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I like what you're saying though. Like it needs to have a purpose, and I like the fact that at least from my how I'm interpreting it, it feels like it has a purpose in this movie. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's about everything that I want to say. I feel like, we touched on all the major aspects of this movie. I don't feel like there's much more that we can kind of go into. The last little thing I wanted to say about the major that I liked was the fact that when Togus is asking, why am I on this team? And the reason she gives to him, because he's a regular human that likes to use a regular revolver. It seems like he'd be a liability on a team of genetically enhanced cyborgs. But she understands that having him on the team makes them more rounded out, because she said, I think her quote was, when you over specialize, you breed weakness. So in order to fight the weakness and to keep them flexible, she basically put someone on the team that was completely different than everyone else, and that could be completely unpredictable because of the fact that he is mostly human. And I thought that was interesting that they made that a part of her character to think like that.
Yeah, that's good.
So, but
Yeah, it's
yeah,
you definitely have to watch this movie a couple times to really like pick up on all this stuff.
yeah. When I finished it, I almost did what you did, but then I realized I didn't have enough time. But I almost wanted to rewatch the first half of the movie, because even right now, while we are talking, I don't entirely remember why the puppet master was hacking those other people, like the garbage men and those people. I don't understand how that connects to his plan to get closer to Motoko. So I have to rewatch the movie to see that. But the end of the movie, I completely understand. But now I'm thinking back, and I'm like, I don't understand what the first part of the movie was for.
Right. It was like, yeah, now that you mention it, I can't remember either.
Yeah. So, but is there anything else that you want to say before we close out this segment?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. So, what did you guys think about the movie? Have you seen it? Like, comment below, let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe. But even if you don't, though, I've been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we will see you all next time.